So, how many of you remember a few years back seeing the movie Hacksaw Ridge? I know there's one person in here that remembers it. At least, okay, so those of you that are over the age of 17, how many of you remember seeing that movie? It's about the life of a man named Desmond Doss. Born in 1919, Desmond grew up in the Lynchburg, Virginia area. He was raised in the Seventh-day Adventist church. So that means that he had a few different ideas and opinions about what the scriptures say and what they mean than we do. But Desmond was a man of very strong faith. Desmond was a man of very closely held beliefs. The trouble was that some of his beliefs, well, they were in conflict with each other. You see, Desmond's church taught that all forms of violence are wrong, that they taught a very strict form of pacifism. Desmond himself refused to even carry a firearm, refused to pick up a rifle. But he also believed very strongly that he was supposed to serve his country. And Desmond was not willing to compromise either belief. When World War II started, he was determined that he was going to serve in the military. Just not as a soldier. So he decided, I'll be a medic. Now generally, medics were expected to carry rifles. They were expected to use them in defense of their own units. Typically, people who were conscientious objectors, they just wanted to be excused from all forms of service. Problem was, Desmond was not your typical, ordinary young man. And no one really quite knew what to do with him, especially his drill sergeant and his commanding officer at basic training. Their assumption was, well, if he didn't want to fight, he must be a coward. And if he's a coward, he'll be a liability to his fellow soldiers on the battlefield. So the drill sergeant made it his personal mission to get rid of Desmond Doss, to drum him out of the army. He wanted to make him so miserable that he would want to quit. And his main tack was to turn his fellow soldiers against him. So he ordered extra duties, extra drills, extra hikes, running, anything he could do to turn the men against Desmond. And he was successful in turning the men against Desmond. Enough so that one night, Desmond was attacked in his barracks while he slept, badly beaten. Beaten so bad that when the drill sergeant saw him the next day, even he had pity on him. When the sergeant practically begged him to quit, Desmond explained, "No, sir, I can't. You see, I've got KP duty, I've got extra duties, cleaning. I've got too much to do. I don't have time to quit." So when the sergeant asked him who it was that attacked him, Desmond said, "No one attacked me. I just sleep real hard." You see, here's the thing. Desmond had set his face. He had determined that he was going to serve his country because it was the right thing to do. But Desmond also thought that God had commanded not to kill in war. And though we think that he misunderstood God's commandment in our church, he believed that. And he was not going to back down on that. He wasn't going to compromise either conviction. And he had confidence that God was going to be his defense. God was going to take up for him. Now, the irony is that the men that Desmond had sworn to serve rejected him. They mocked him and they beat him. Desmond didn't defend himself. In fact, Desmond didn't even accuse them when it would have been right for him to do so. If you saw the movie or read the books, you also know that some of these very same men would end up owing Desmond their lives. On the island of Okinawa, the Battle of Hacksaw Ridge, Desmond proved that he was not a coward. Single-handedly rescuing approximately 75 American soldiers. Soldiers who would have otherwise died in the battlefield from their wounds or been killed by the enemy soldiers when the American forces had been forced to retreat. You could say that Desmond felt called by God to serve and to save those men. And nothing was going to stop him. So let's go back and reread some of today's Old Testament reading from Isaiah. Isaiah wrote, "The Lord God has opened my ear, and I was not disobedient, nor did I turn back. I gave my back to those who strike me, and my cheeks to those who pluck out the beard. I did not cover my face from humiliation and spitting, for the Lord God helps me. Therefore I am not disgraced. Therefore I have set my face like a flint, and I know that I will not be ashamed. He who vindicates me is near." Doesn't that sound a lot like the way Desmond Doss lived his life? Sounds a lot like the way the prophet Isaiah lived his life too. You remember that God had told the prophet Isaiah that the people that he would be speaking to would reject his message, would absolutely reject him. God told Isaiah that he would actually suffer because he was being faithful to speak God's words to these people. And Isaiah determined in his heart that he was going to stay the course. God had commanded him, and nothing was going to stop him because God was on his side. And if God was on his side, then it didn't matter who was on the other side. Isaiah was rejected by these very people that he was sent to help. Isaiah would eventually be killed by these people that he was serving. He knew it was coming. He knew it was going to happen. And it didn't matter to him. God had called him, and he was going to do it. Nothing was going to stop him. And as we read his words, there's another man that we should be thinking about. In the overall theme of the book of Isaiah, these particular words are meant to be heard as the words of God's substitute servant, the servant that was going to take the place of the nation of Israel, the one who would fulfill Israel's role in the world, who would fulfill Israel's responsibility. See, Isaiah, 700 years before the events actually took place, Isaiah was writing about the trial and the death of Jesus Christ. The Gospel of Luke even uses some of the same words that Isaiah uses. Luke writes in chapter 9, "When the days drew near for him to be taken up, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And he sent messengers ahead of him who went and entered a village of the Samaritans to make preparations for him. But the people there did not receive him because his face was set toward Jerusalem." Jesus was sent to a people that he knew would reject him. He selflessly served a people that he knew would kill him, but he knew that his mission was to save those very same people. And nothing was going to stop him. What Jesus did there, that first half of the first century in Palestine on a hill outside a wall of a city named Jerusalem, it didn't just save 75 men from the tribe of Judah. It didn't just save the people that were living at that day and that time in the nation of Judah. Jesus' act of self-sacrifice, it changed everything. And I mean literally changed everything. If God's spoken word created the universe on that first day, this incarnate living word, the only begotten Son of God, by his death on that cross, he recreated the universe. He ransomed all of creation, paid the price, bought it back from the judgment of death and corruption that had held the entire creation captive from that very first day that Adam had sinned. This was Jesus' mission. And nothing was going to stop him. So, finally, it's time for me to ask my question. What's God called you to do? What has God called us to do? Here at Redeemer Lutheran Church in Lubbock, Texas, in the year 2018, what has he called us to do? Who has he called us to serve? What's our mission? You see, Desmond Doss was not called to serve every Marine and every infantryman in all of Europe and all of Southeast Asia. He was called to serve the men in the 307th, a part of the 77th Infantry Division. That was it. Those were the men he was called to serve. Isaiah was not called to prophesy to every people of every nation of all times. He was not called to prophesy to all of the nations even during his lifetime. Isaiah was called to prophesy to the nation of Judah. And we've been called for a specific purpose, for this specific time. And when we hear that call, when we hear what our mission is, we're going to have a decision to make. Will we answer? Will our answer be half-hearted, indecisive? Will we turn back when things get tough? Desmond could have quit. Anytime Desmond could have quit. He could have said, you know what? These guys, they are just not worth it. Isaiah could have quit. Isaiah had a choice to make. Both of these men chose not to turn back. Both of these men chose to set their face like a flint. They chose personal loss for the sake of others. And they did it because God called them to do it. So when we're faced with that same choice, may God grant us the strength to choose obedience over personal gain. Give us the confidence that He is going to be our defense. Give us a determination to see it through to the end, no matter what. See, Jesus, when He went to the cross to save us, He counted the cost. And He decided that we were worth it. We were worth Him giving up everything. Suffering, becoming a curse, receiving the punishment that every one of us deserves. How can we do anything less? How can we not give everything that we have so that someone else can hear the good news that Jesus Christ has died to save them? The time to decide how we're going to answer the call, the time to decide how we're going to respond, it's now. Don't wait until things get hard. Don't wait for adversity to come. Don't wait until the enemy has attacked us, has beaten us, and bloodied us. Now is the time to set our face like a flint. Now is the time to fix our eyes on that goal. God is calling Redeemer Lutheran Church to His mission field. Right now is the time for us to decide that nothing is going to stop us. Amen.